Welcome to the No Streetlights podcast. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Tim. We'll be diving deeply into what we've been through, how it changed us, and what we've learned.
We want to crush stigma through sharing stories and open and vulnerable conversations.
These conversations could be triggering, so listen at your own discretion.
But please, reach out if we need to be doing something better. So, let's take a breath, relax, and be welcome.
A huge thank you to Highland Markle for the original music, as well as all the production assistants.
We could not have done it without you, brother. Thank you.
If you like his music, you can find him on the gram at HYLANDMARKLE or check the description below, in case you missed how to spell that.
We got links everywhere.
There's links for days. We got links on links on links.
He does have several letters in his name.
He does, actually.
He may have many letters, but he's got one partner, and that is the incredible, the intelligent Melissa Hite. I'm going to call her a doctor. She's not a doctor. She's a counselor.
No. Don't do that.
If you're in her presence, you feel it. You feel that she's a healer. You feel that she knows what she's talking about. So you know she's going to take care of you. So we're excited to bring her on today. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you. Don't get me in trouble. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. Please don't get me in trouble.
I will qualify her as a great human being.
Yeah. I can get her qualified in senior specialist. We'll call her that.
Senior specialist. Great.
Yeah. We'll write subject matter expert on her eval.
Ooh, that'd be perfect. Let's get her an EP too.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
I appreciate the validation.
So, Melissa, what's going on with you?
Oh, just starting my day, ready to have a conversation with you guys about whatever we talk about. We'll see where it goes. Hopefully my work.
Bright and early over there.
Hopefully that's what we're doing.
Oh, we actually are bringing you in to talk about Supernatural.
Yeah.
Sorry, we forgot to tell you that part.
I hope you've read the entire fan canon of Supernatural, because we're not going over like traditional canon. We're going over fan canon today.
Okay, so this is a show. This isn't like an encounter with something or like someone with special abilities.
TV show, sorry.
How many seasons is it, Tim?
15 seasons. They're about an hour-long episodes.
So I am the wrong
we're done
guest
recording.
for this.
No, you're the exact perfect
Well, you
guest.
got 50 minutes.
Yeah, you got 50 minutes.
So, Melissa, you said you want to talk about your work today. And I've been informed that you are a sexual educator. So what does that entail?
I'm so happy you started with what does that entail, because there's, a lot of people get really messed up. When I tell people that I help people with sexuality, they assume I'm a therapist, and I'm not. I'm a sex educator, and that entails a lot of things. Like sex education incorporates anatomy and physiology and reproduction, the obvious things, body image, sexual orientation, gender identity. So far, like a lot of things, but then gets into sexuality throughout life and behaviors, including like masturbation and abstinence, and sexuality through the silver years, through the older years in life, sexual dysfunction, reproductive health, contraception, pregnancy, abortion, all these things, STIs, pleasure. Pleasure is a big one. If sex education wants to be sex positive rather than just fear-based, then pleasure education has to be incorporated in that. That's a big thing missing out of sex education. Family dynamics, relationships, boundaries, communication skills, all sorts of things go into what sex education is. It's very, very vast, but thankfully we have an army that is growing of sex educators trying to help. So yeah, I'm a holistic sex educator, among other things. I've been a body worker for 18 years. I was a professional aerialist and acrobat for some time.
Wow.
Done a lot of things. So I specialize in in the body, but I've always studied sexuality. I've always geared toward that since I was a kid. So I help people. I help people have different views of how they currently view sexuality, their own or the idea of sexuality at large.
I think my public school education in West Virginia may disagree. I think sex education is just abstinence, right?
That for me in Utah as well. We don't talk about it. So, don't ever do it. You're going to die if you do.
Oh, yeah. That's actually a pretty logical way to go about it, too. One of the largest things people will ever have to, well, not have to, but one of the largest things people will ever engage in their life. And just don't do it or you'll die. Makes sense.
It's extremely problematic to not give people the information they need as they grow and mature into adults.
I totally agree. I've had a lot of issues throughout my life not knowing the things that you said are like basics, subjects to be covered in sex education.
Yeah.
Whereas we were taught if you have sex, you'll get an STI and you'll die.
Mm-hmm.
I remember in 10th grade, whenever I went through the sex education portion of our health class, and it was about 35 minutes of them showing us photos of what STIs can do to individuals' genitalia, and, also as well as like oral herpes and other things along those lines. And then they were just like, here's a piece of paper. And it was like, I promise not to have sex till I'm married. And I was like, what? Like, am I going to learn anything about this? I think at one point they also showed us how to put a condom on a cucumber, I think. Mm-hmm. I'm actually not sure if that happened or if that was a scene from a movie I watched.
Yeah. It's horrific. It's horrific. And again, it's problematic. It creates problems. One of the things I specialize in is boundary work. And it's the thing I'm most focused on right now. And boundary work should start developmentally around 5 years old, kindergarten age, of learning bodily autonomy. This is my body. Mm-hmm. I have rights with this body. I can say yes and say no to what happens to it. I don't have to kiss grandma, these kind of things. And also, that's your body. I get to respect your body because you also have bodily autonomy. I don't get to just touch you if I want to or whatever. This is very, very basic stuff that people don't think about when they think about sex education, mostly because people think of sex in a very myopic way, a very, very narrow way of an act that just involves genitals. And human sexuality is so much bigger than that. It's so much bigger that we don't think about the developmental things like boundaries, like bodily autonomy that 5-year-olds need to be learning and are learning in the Netherlands and, different countries that are more on it.
Yeah. And I know since the wedding, when I actually met you in person, I've been following you, not literally, but on Facebook. And
Thank you.
Yeah. And I see that most of your workshops are kind of communication and boundary centric. And I think that's incredibly important because I think that's one of the reasons my marriage is so successful. And Tim would agree with me here, is that we communicate so well. And if my wife doesn't like something I'm doing, she tells me to stop doing it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing a lot of the time.
Yeah. I've been working in human sexuality since 2009. And I've done a lot of trial and error, and I continue to do a lot of trial and error. I did 2.5 years of a weekly class where I taught the curriculum every week. And that was really great for me to refine what I want to teach, what's working, what's not working, all these things. And what I found is nothing sticks unless you know boundaries, unless you understand who you are, where the lines of you end and where other people begin. If that isn't something that's solid in you, nothing else works. Your whole life is a struggle without that. So I chose to focus on that because I have a vision of a large online curriculum, which isn't there yet. Right now, it's just the boundary work that I have out and online, but I did it first for a reason. And eventually, not too far in the future, I'm going to require people to go through that course before working with me at all, because if you don't get it, I can't really help you from there.
Makes sense.
I think that understanding where we come from is pretty important. So, could you delve more into being from Utah and how the sexual repression, how that kind of helped you down this path and hindered you down this path?
It really did help me. It probably hindered me, and I don't see that as much. Maybe that's some shadow work I need to look at more, but I started at a very, very young age being very curious about the body and how it worked. And I had a lot of questions. And my questions were really met with a lot of awkwardness and a lot of shaming and distraction. And my questions weren't inappropriate. They weren't wrong. I was like 4. I was curious. I remember asking, why does he have these parts? And I don't have that. Like, what is that? There was stuff between his legs. I didn't know what that was. And I asked, and people were so upset with me and shame. And we don't talk about that. And really what I needed was like, oh, he has a penis. Those are penis. That's a penis and testicles. You don't have that. You have a vulva. Like, that's the answer I needed that would have quenched my curiosity. And then I would have gone back to playing jump rope. I wouldn't have started having sex. I just needed the answers. The basic anatomy questions answered, and I would have been okay. So having all of that repression really drove me into studying from a very young age. I would sneak away in libraries often and go look at all sorts of different kinds of books that were way over my head. I found in my teenage years, I found a book by Hite, and I just loved it because it was the same last name as me, but it was a high level sexuality book that was way over my head, but I tried to read it. And I did my best to read it and understand it. And I was so excited to see that there was information out there. My questions could be answered, just not with the people around me. So I started studying sexuality from a very, very young age.
So it really sounds like the initial hindrance of being in a sexually repressive area was almost like the springboard for you to catapult into the study.
Yeah, I don't think you could have stopped me. Some people come in and they just start fixing cars and they just start whatever. Like, so sometimes we come in and we just have what we have already set forth for us, I believe. And I don't think you could have stopped me from studying sexuality at all.
I'm curious, and I'm wondering if you have an opinion on this or not, but why do you think people are so scared to answer questions like that? Like, yes, you are 4 years old, and people obviously aren't going to assume that you are attempting to be in any kind of sexual relation at an age like that. But like, why does it seem like it's so wrong to be curious or ask those questions or to answer those questions? Why does it make people so, I don't know, nervous?
So there's a word for it. It's called erotophobia.
Oh,
and
okay.
It is so, what's the word? Ubiquitous? I don't know. It penetrates all of our culture. Everyone has erotophobia to some degree because we've been just steeped in it and just grown up in it. I honestly think it comes from old religious programming of understanding that when you repress someone's vitality, their vibrance, their power, you have more control over them.
Okay.
And if you have more control over them, like, you take away that power from them and then you say, but I have the power, but I have the knowledge. I am a prophet. I am connected to this source. And you can ask me the questions. You can give me your money. You can meet me every week. And, it's a way to have power and control over large populations by separating them from their life force. And sexuality is our life force energy. We are created from it. It's what feeds us and nourishes us. I think it's what innervates the plants and light. I think sexual energy is life force energy. It is creation energy, the energy of creation.
I mean, that makes sense.
Right? It's just logical. And we can't separate from that. Sorry, go ahead.
Sexuality is an energy, and people want to talk about like, okay, so as an example, whenever people are pregnant and they give birth to a beautiful, healthy baby, everybody always wants to talk about how much they love the miracle of childbirth. That is such an important thing to talk about, to the point where parents are accosting their children. People my age are dealing with their parents being like, when are you going to have a baby? When are you going to experience the miracle of childbirth? Like, and don't get me wrong, it is a miracle. It is absolutely a miracle. But everybody wants to talk about that side. Nobody wants to talk about what steps you have to take in order to get to the childbirth. And I find that so fascinating. Everybody focuses only on one half of the coin. Everybody is so terrified to talk about anything sexual related, but they will hit on how much they love the miracle of childbirth, and God put women on this planet and gave them the gift to be able to grow a human.
I think a lot of that is the stigma and the shame, and how we're kind of like beat over the head of like, don't ask those questions, you can't be sexual.
Yeah.
Instead of just being given the answers. And I know, Tim, you've talked about feeling like there's like a generational awakening where we're learning that we do need to know about that stuff. And that's one of the reasons we brought Melissa on today, is because she is the expert. Tim and I are laymen.
Yeah.
Melissa knows what she's talking about. We wanted to, even when we had the Don't Be a Creep episode and stuff, we called around and said, hey, is there anything we should be doing better? And Melissa gave us some recommendations, and we plan to move forward with those. But it's just good to have someone in your corner who knows what they're talking about, and Melissa is that person with sexuality. So come along for the ride today. This is a seminar, Tim.
People are paying for this?
Well, ad revenue should eventually happen.
Hopefully one day. I really do hope.
One day.
I really do want to touch on that though, Aaron, and Melissa, I'll let you talk about it. I'm going to explain what Aaron was saying, right? So I had an observation. I feel as if the generation now is going through what I would call a more like a sexual awakening, right? People are becoming more open to talk about like sexuality. That is one of the big things that people are talking about now, is like sexual orientation. 10 years ago, 15-ish years ago, how old am I? 30? Yeah. 15 years ago, that wasn't a thing. People did not like that conversation. People made fun of it. If you were anybody who was even slightly different, the term gay would be used as a slander. Like talking about if something wasn't cool or whatever, they would use that term. And it's like, nowadays, that's not an acceptable thing. People do not do that. And I mention this because, like I said, I feel as if the generations now are becoming more aware. They're becoming more willing to accept it, right? And it's not just in regards to accepting people of different sexual orientations, but just sex in general. But that's how I feel. And I want you to kind of tell me what you think of that, Melissa.
Yeah.
Since you're the one you're the expert here.
Thanks. I think the sexual revolution has been happening a long time, and you're waking up to it at this time and seeing. Like, I think it's been an ongoing spreading thing. Like, someone from the 60s is like, no, man, the sexual revolution happened in 60 whatever. That was before my time. But even before that, sex wasn't talked about at all. Your mom and your grandma and whatever told you nothing. I think we're waking up on a wave that's already been happening. And the wave is we can't be controlled anymore and suppressed on what is natural, what is human, what is beautiful. Like, we're over it. We're over being sequestered from that. It's just silly. It's like the generations over being mistreated at work and underpaid. Like, we're over it. We're not going to bust our ass to not be able to pay our bills. No, we're done with that. So we're just waking up to a wave that's happening in a movement that's been happening for a long time, is how I see that.
That makes sense.
And how cool.
Yeah. How good.
How cool.
It really is awesome because, like, generations before, nobody was talking about that stuff. And you kind of see, like, I don't know if you've ever seen that that OnlyFans page that this woman created. Very clever, very funny. She sells Victorian era ankle photos. Awesome. I find that to be super hilarious because it's playing on that old joke. You know, everybody's like, oh, yes, a woman's ankle, so sexy, or something ridiculous like that. In all seriousness, during the Victorian era, that was a big deal. You know, like that was being sexual.
That's why tablecloths were invented. Do you know that?
No, I did not.
So the legs of the tables didn't turn men on.
Oh my absolute God. Maybe we should just get rid of table legs then.
Right. It's so silly.
I mean, that would be how a school would react to it, right? Like, oh, well, just, you know, your shorts have to be longer than your fingertips, which is a completely strange and subjective manner of telling girls to wear, like, basically, you know, basketball shorts. I don't know. Weird thing. Weird tangent. I feel like I could go on a tangent about dress codes because I do think dress codes, yeah, they're very unfair. But that's not what we're here to talk about.
It could be, you know, that goes with all sorts of sex education material. Yeah.
I think one thing that I'm really curious to know about, and I know you touched on why you do it, but the question is how did you get into this particular field? Being curious and everything like that, that's what gave you the knowledge and the ability to be able to understand and want to understand these things. But how did you get into this field?
Mm-hmm. I love that question. Thanks. So I was a childhood gymnast and then started doing pole dancing as an adult, which reconnected me with the acrobatic side of me and loved it. I loved pole dancing. I caught on really well, really fast. I started teaching really soon, did a couple competitions, and teaching in Utah connected me directly with women having breakthroughs and breakdowns, just like tears of, oh my God, I've never moved my hips. I've never been connected with this part of my body. I didn't know there was power here. I didn't know I could feel this on my own and not have to do it for a man, that I could do this by myself and move my body in a way that made me feel good and powerful and sexy and strong and beautiful and all the things. So I started coaching women and supporting them with breakthroughs in who they are as a person and how they walk through the world. And that was super powerful. I'm also a massage therapist and a lymphatic therapist, and I was doing breast work at the time too. No one was specializing in just doing breast work. So I was helping on different ends that were very vulnerable and very just big things for women to have these kind of breakthroughs. Right. And of course, I'm witness to it, so I'm a part of it. So I'm having these breakthroughs as well. And like, oh, I can be what I want to be as well. So all of that was happening. Not too long into that journey, something really weird happened. I saw a woman on Oprah. They were doing Skype for the first time, and it was like this cool new technology that we can talk to people from across the world. Look how cool Skype is. So Oprah was interviewing a sex worker from the Bunny Ranch, and a day in the life. Look at this woman in her world. And she was so eloquent and so intelligent and so well-spoken. I was just so overwhelmingly enamored with her as a person that I just had to talk to her. It was odd. Side note, I had some mentors at the time that gave us a task that week of making an outrageous request. So I had to make an outrageous request that week. So I emailed this woman and I lied and I told her I was in school and doing a report and blah, 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 blah. And can I interview her? Which was not true. I just wanted to talk to her. And I totally lied. And she sent not something I do, but I was like, outrageous request. I want to talk to her. I know now that she was clear that I wasn't a client trying to get her services, and she got hundreds of emails a day. So she doesn't care. So she sent my email to management. She forwarded it to management. They misconstrued it as me like trying to apply for a job. And they wrote back and said, we'll talk to you, but you have to send us pictures first. And I didn't think that was odd because of the type of company. It was a brothel. I thought, you need to know that I'm 18 to talk to me. And I just had a photo shoot done from a friend that did a photo shoot. So it was all like this perfect storm that created this. So I didn't think anything of it. And I sent them pictures and they wrote back, "You're hired." And I was like, wait, what?
Accidentally hired.
I accidentally got hired at the Bunny Ranch. And my partner came home that day and said, "How was your day?" And I said, "Well, I got hired at the Bunny Ranch today." And they were so sweet. They took their bag off and put it in the spot that their bag goes. And they nodded and said, "Okay, we have some conversations to have then."
Yeah.
And we had a lot of conversations. We had a couple weeks with us having really clear conversations and talking with some mentors of ours at the time. And I decided it was something that if I didn't try, I would regret it. I imagined my 80-year-old self rocking in a rocking chair thinking, man, I could have been a hooker, you know? I was going to try it. I was probably going to hate it. It could potentially be traumatizing. And I was clear that I had the support to be okay and to heal from what happened there. So I went and I tried it. And my first client, we both left in tears. He was an absolutely changed person. And I decided it was so healing. And I decided, if this is what's happening here, this level of healing, this level of transformation, I did healing work a lot. I did massage therapy a lot. I saw people come to me in pain. I helped them. They left feeling better. Nothing compared to this man coming to me so desperate, so in need of being seen and touched, and his humanity reflected back to him.
Yeah.
That the transformation was so intense. And I stood there as he walked away. I'll never forget watching his back leave the door. And I said, if this is what's happening here, if it's this level of healing that's happening in these places, I'm in, and I don't fucking care what anyone has to say about it. Which was bold, because a lot of people had a lot of things to say about it.
Yeah. I imagine that some people probably had opinions, but
the next 10 years, I dealt with a lot of people saying a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And nobody is in my shoes. Nobody was ever in the room with me except for my clients. Like, nobody knows what I did and how I did it. And you can believe me or not, it was beautiful. It was deeply transformational. I definitely saved lives. I loved the work. So I did sex work for 10 years. This was a long tangent. Thanks for riding the wave with me, but I did that for 10 years.
It's been a beautiful story.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Completely true, except for the lie that I told Brooke about being a student.
Yeah.
And then I started teaching classes, and then I went to school because it was clear that just like a hooker who's really smart is still not going to be respected in the world. So I went to the Institute of Sexual Education and Enlightenment, and I took 4 years and I got the certification as a holistic sex educator. And honestly, like the biggest part of my work was the 10 years of sex work. Was there's no exchange for experience.
Yeah.
You know? And
That's knowledge versus wisdom.
Totally. That was like the front lines and working with a lot of sexual desperation. You know, people have a lot of views on what happens in brothels, but for me, I had a lot of people that were desperate to be seen and touched and acknowledged as human beings. We don't all have the privilege of being socially skilled enough to find sexual partners, attractive enough, bold or brave enough to connect with other humans. You know, there's a large population that struggles there and deserves to have their human needs met.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the whole, like, if you don't make your own serotonin, store-bought's fine. If I'm not persecuted for being on Prozac, why should someone be persecuted for going to a professional to have their needs met?
Right. The problem is that we don't see it as a need. It's the only need that society says, oh, like, get over it. Go for a run. Like if you came and you're like, I am so thirsty, I'm going to die, I'm so dehydrated. And someone was like, you're fine. Just, you'll feel better tomorrow.
Sleep it off.
Sleep it off.
Drink your own spit.
Right. No one says that. Like, oh my God, you're thirsty, here's some water.
Yeah.
You're hungry, here's some food or whatever. But with sexual needs, we don't respect it as a society. Go ahead, Tim.
There is something that I just now made this connection in my head. I am so smart. But about, what was it? A couple episodes ago now, right? Aaron and I were talking about 3 facets that you should focus on in order to be well-rounded and overall healthy. The 3 things that we mentioned was physical, mental, and spiritual. And the final link that connected this in my brain was you referring to, reflecting a person's humanity back at them during your time as a sex worker. And it like struck me, holy crap, it's one of the only things I can think of that hits all 3 of those things. It's a physical thing, a mental thing, and a spiritual thing. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And we neglect it so much. Like, good Lord.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm supposed to be masturbating or not. Like, honestly, some things say a man should come 21 times a month or whatever, but is that me and my wife? Is that me by myself?
In combination?
And that's just saying that, sex education is horribly...
Well, it's enslaved you. It's trapped you in a way. So you can't just say, like, I want to come right now, so I'm going to come with my wife or without or whatever. Like, so you can't just make your own decisions for your health and your body. You have all of these parameters are like, oh, should I? Shouldn't I? Is this okay? Is this not okay? It's they're chains, they're ties.
So do you want to talk a little bit about the societal shame and the stigmas and stuff and how you're working to...
Yeah.
Or even your argument for what's the solution there?
The solution is, first and foremost, I think, to fight erotophobia within yourself. Yeah. I have a blog on my website written about that. And how we do that is we notice where we tense up, where we get scared. If I say masturbation, check into your body right now. Is there like a lump in your throat or a tightness in your gut or like, what you do is you take a breath and you let it chill, like you let it relax. Okay. And if we say the word penis, if you see someone kiss in public, if you think about sex and you notice like this tension happens in your body, can you relax and loosen about it? I think that's where it starts, is addressing the erotophobia inside you. On a large level, it starts with education and having sex be a conversation that isn't overly repressed or overly expressed. I think overexpression of sexuality is just as damaging as over repression. But we see that
I think I'd agree.
We have the whole gamut in our culture. We have the whole gamut of we don't talk about this at all. And then we have all sorts of overexpression. I don't want to shame anything or anybody by giving any examples, but there's plenty of examples of overexpression.
Yeah, we all know whenever that's too much.
Yeah. And also, who's to say what's too much? And it's a part of the pendulum swing. It's a part of the balance. Like, if you have to do that to be in balance because you've been so repressed, then do that as long as you need. I want us eventually to kind of come back to a middle grounded place where we can hold a reverence, where we don't need to throw it in anybody's face. And we also don't need to hide anything from anybody, where it's just like we're talking about trees and how they grow and other forms of nature and how it evolves. Balance.
One interesting thing that I'd really like to hear your thoughts on is the whole taboo in our culture around nudity. I had a friend share a post where their child took a picture of them while they like got out of the shower or something, and of course they censored it, shared it, and said, you know, this is why you don't give your kids your phone when you go to take a shower. And they were told, like, you're an awful parent for your child seeing you naked. And I think that's a lot of the reason why people don't understand their bodies is in Norway and stuff, they talk about seeing your grandma naked. So then when your wife gets old, you're not sad when her boobs start pointing down, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that we do need to normalize nudity and sexuality to an extent, and that we get to decide what that extent is.
Right. Yeah, there are studies that show that the more nudity you see growing up, the better body image you have. If all I see are supermodels online, and then I look at my body, I feel really fucking terrible about who I am. Because this has created a standard, this is what everyone should look like, and I don't. But if I see all sorts of different shapes and sizes and colors and oddities and abnormalities and all the things, it's like, wow, my body fits me. My body is created by me, by how I've lived my life, and genetics and, you know, all the other things. But one of the projects that I did before COVID shut this down for me, was I had nude dinner parties. I hosted nude dinner parties.
Incredible.
That were 100% non-sexual and 100% sober.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
That's fantastic.
They were so fun. They were so fun. I can't even tell you. So we made the food, we catered the food, and we all got together, and we did it ceremonially and with a ritual, and made it sacred without being too serious. Because like, it's hard for people. It was hard. It's not easy just to take off your clothes in front of someone. But we all did eventually. And then we all just hung out naked. And it was amazing. Every time there was a specific trajectory, every time there was this tension. We're scared. We're not so sure. And then more people are taking off their clothes. Okay. And then after X amount of time, after we're all nude, everyone's chill. Everyone's fine. Nobody cared. Like, it's so relaxed. And it happened every time that way. And it was so beautiful to facilitate that, but just to be a witness to that process of normalizing the body. Of course, the body is normal.
That's pretty incredible, though.
That's pretty incredible, though.
I don't know if I've ever heard of anything like that before. I remember there was, I remember hearing about something about there was like a dinner that was served entirely on the body of a naked person or something like that. I remember hearing about that. People called it like a social experiment or something, or I don't know, bougie eating, dining, and you know, you get to eat, you get to eat strawberries off of some person's body, but
it's common with sushi.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, sushi. I think that's what I heard it was.
It's
about.
common with sushi.
Yeah. I think that's the
word for it.
I think that's the only thing I've heard of that.
I don't know. Aaron, you were in Japan.
Aaron, you were in Japan.
That's totally different. It's one person on display.
Yeah.
It's one person being vulnerable, and we're all watching it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a performance piece.
Yeah. I mean, that's very interesting. And you did this how many times?
I did 3 and had the next 3 set up when COVID shut things down.
Was it different people each time?
Yeah, it was.
No repeaters or anything like that?
The host, the person that we had the house at, but nobody else.
And like, what kind of feedback did you get from the other dinner guests? Like, what did they, I guess maybe not necessarily what did they learn, but like, what did they feel afterwards, after it was done and over? Like, did they have any,
I don't know, regrets or anything like that?
Freedom and aliveness and joy, and just the restraints that they have around themselves and their body just gone. You know, there was a lot of like, thank you for giving me the experience of feeling comfortable while naked around other people. Like, they've never had that experience.
Yeah, people think they'll be revulsed if they take off their clothes. But really, like we've said 100,000 times on the podcast, we're all doing our best.
Totally.
And our body is a result of our life. So let your story be heard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There was not one single person that didn't have a story of like, oh, I don't want you to see these stretch marks. Oh, my penis is this size and not this size. Like, this is what the hair looks like here. I have these bumps here. Look at this scar. Like, everyone had something that they had this like, oh, I don't want to show you this.
Wow.
And after they
if
did, they were
someone
like,
ever tells me they don't got butt pimples, I'm gonna smack them for being a liar. Everyone's got a pimple on their butt.
I
Come
don't.
on, bro.
You have at some point.
I have before in my life, yes.
I'm just saying that, like, our bodies are normal.
These things
It's like
happen.
whenever, you know, the masseuse tells you to undress, it's not the first body they're seeing.
Yeah. But like I'm thinking, like, if I was at that dinner party, what would be the thing that I would tell people, like, oh yeah, you know, that don't look at this whatever or something. You know, it makes me wonder, like, what part of my body do I have, like, I guess like a lack of confidence in? Where does my anxieties lie whenever I think about my naked body? That's interesting. That's something I'm going to reflect on, I think.
Yeah. I went skinny dipping with one friend in my 30 years, and I'm a crazy fucking person, and I've offered to skinny dip with just about everyone, you know, overseas when we're having fun. I'm like, dude, do you guys want to just dive in? And everyone's like, no.
Because they have these stretch marks or this shape weird.
Yeah.
One thing that you said in our brainstorm session that I really want to talk about is that when you feel powerful and capable in your body, you feel safe. Whenever you feel accepted, like when me and my buddy went skinny dipping, we saw each other, we still loved each other and appreciated each other. And I mean, that was like a spiritual awakening. It's like, I'm still going to be loved and accepted for who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to talk about how safety comes from feeling powerful and capable and knowing yourself?
Just like owning our power.
Yeah, I think that was a big thing you talked about the other day.
Marianne Williamson has a great quote about we're not afraid of our shortcomings as nearly as much as we're afraid of our power and our brilliance.
Yep.
And how amazing we are as people, our light. That is not at all the quote. It's a great quote, but that's the idea of it. And I think that's really true. And I think we really struggle to hold that in our bodies, to hold how great we are. And not in an arrogant way, but in a reverent, like, we are a miracle way.
Yeah.
And that takes work and effort to continue to own more and more of that power. It's a never ending thing. We don't, you know, maybe when we die and burst into light, maybe that's when we can own all of it. But while we're in this body, we have a finite amount of our radiance that we can embody. And I do think that creates a safety when you have a clear container of who you are. That gets to the boundary work that I do. Having a clear container of the person that you are and managing your energies it creates a different person than when you're trying to people please all the time, than when you're trying to do the things that other people want you to do, or look in a way that other people want you to do, or society says is the certain way that we have to look, and yada, yada, yada. That's where we have energy leaks, and when we give our power away.
That feels a lot like owning your body and just being conscious of it. Just saying, this is my body. I get to choose what happens to it and with it. And therefore, you know, in a way, you're untouchable because you know your body and you know your boundaries.
Yeah, and it's always a work in progress. There isn't an end point to that. You don't just get to that point and say, now I know, because the world is
here.
still pulling you
all
out
day,
of
Aaron.
that. The world is still saying you're not quite good enough and you need to be something else. You know, especially women, especially people of color. You're not this ideal white person. You are less than in some way, which is absolute bullshit. Yeah, it's always a work in progress to maintain who you are and fight the powers that try to keep you from that.
We're totally fine to say, look how amazing my body is. or my body is. But we're not comfortable with the dysfunction or the irregular.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the shame comes in, and that's the internal barriers. So even if there's no external barrier saying you're not allowed to take your shirt off at the beach for us guys, you then have internal barriers that you have to overcome. Why am I not comfortable taking my shirt off?
Mm-hmm. Well, we internalize like the patriarchal systems and stuff. We internalize those as standards. If you grew up in a nudist colony, you wouldn't have that internal structure.
Yeah.
Likely, making speculation here, but
something that kind of comes to my mind while we're on this topic. Okay, so when people come to you and they're at the point where they are looking for that sex education, do you feel like they're like, do they have to reach like a certain like low in order for them to feel like they need that? Or do you get people from all kinds of walks? Like a person who felt like they're normally healthy with their sexual education, they come to you because they feel like there might be something more to learn? Or do you run across more people who are like, I have no idea, I feel like maybe I'm doing something wrong. I don't know what I'm doing. Can you just please like show me how to do this properly or something like that? Like
a large majority of my clientele being in Utah are recovering Mormons is what I call them, as people that are leaving Mormonism or have left Mormonism and understand that they have been separated from some developmental information that they want to have now that they're adults, and they're like, oh, I don't get this, or I feel really weird about this, and I want to not feel weird about this anymore. So that's a large part of my clientele, and they are kind of at a place of like, oh, I can't do this anymore. Virgins coming in to the brothels in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s as virgins saying, I can't do this anymore. So there's a lot of that. And then there's people that just like want to be better lovers, which I think is amazing. Like lovemaking is a beautiful, sacred part of this existence. And someone coming and saying, I want to do better at this. I want to be able to communicate with my partner better. I work a lot with touch as a massage therapist and sex worker formally. So I have some touch curriculum that I really love to help people have better communication, understand their touch needs better, how to communicate them, how to hear other people's touch needs better. So I work with people on touch. There's quite the gamut of people that come to me. And there's a lot of things that I'll refer out. There's a lot of situations that I don't specialize in, and I know people who do a better job. I don't take every client that comes my way.
That's super important.
Yeah. Understanding their needs and being able to either assist or, refer them in the area where they will be able to get the assistance they need.
It's a big field.
So, I'm trying to see what nuggets we can extract from you while we have you here. I understand that everyone's issues and backgrounds are going to be different. They're going to have different, Tim and I recall training scars from firearms training and stuff. But is there like a recurring solution that almost everyone needs you to hear you say these like 10 words? Is there a typical solution that like everyone has been taught their body is awful and you just have to tell everyone to love themselves? Or is there a standard?
Well, everyone's different and unique, of course, and has different needs. And there are themes. I would say some themes off the top of my head are you're normal. That's fine. It's okay that you have these attraction patterns. It's okay that you're into this kind of a thing. That's totally fine. Also, just like I talked about before, the body autonomy, the knowing who you are, the boundary work, that comes with owning your power, like we talked about, and separating the idea that power is outside of you, that God is outside of you somewhere, and you seek it through other people that have a status, right? So pulling that back into you and knowing that God is in you. So that goes along with embodiment practice. A huge, huge part of sex education is being in the body. being connected to your body, sensation work. That's a massive part of that most sex educators are aware of and at least somewhat savvy at, working on embodiment and sensation. Because we're often, there's a lot of times that people have numbness or pain or different things with any kind of sexual act. I'm not saying this is the overall answer, but a lot of times the answer is to be aware during those times. Often I'll have clients that check out. They're stressed about how their body looks. They're worried about the shopping list. They're in their heads and they're not with their body. If you're not paying attention to what's happening to a certain part of your body, it's gonna go numb. Like attention awareness brings that blood flow, that circulation, that nerve sensation. You need to be aware of what's happening to your body, quite literally. And it sounds basic, but that is really hard for a lot of people to be in their bodies. Their bodies are also
it takes years.
Yeah, but their bodies are also where a lot of people have experienced pain and trauma and abuse.
Yeah.
So those are a couple of themes. Hope that answers that question.
I think
I'll be reflecting on that for a couple years.
Yeah, that's all. That's all. I think that's very solid information for anybody who maybe has those questions but didn't know that it was something that they needed to think about. The being aware during those times, that kind of stuck out to me because I can think, there's definitely been times like during sex or anything like that where I can kind of understand where people would like maybe not be fully present in those moments, or they've got something else on their mind and not even necessarily like, it could be something completely unrelated. Like, I have to pay the bills tomorrow, or I have to go to work tomorrow, or things along those nature. And I think, that being aware during those times, that's something that I think a lot of people should hear those words and then start putting them into practice. I think that's going to be very important for a lot of people because we find easy ways to distract ourselves from the moment that we're in nowadays. And just being present and being aware, that's going to solve so many issues and help you reach solutions that you didn't think you'd be able to reach.
So many during sexual acts, so many people are focused on performance rather than connection. The sex is for connection.
Wow. And so you just want to be present in your body in the act.
Yeah. And not like present is hard for people. Like I could absolutely be present on, does this look good? How does my ass look? Are my tits in the right spot? How hard is my dick? There's all these things that you can be focused on and present with, but is it connection? Yeah. Is it being closer to your partner? Is it understanding them more deeply? Is it listening to their body and listening to your body? That's a different experience than being present and aware of the performance aspect.
And I don't want to like take away any, clientele or anything that may come to you and seek advice and help. But my question is, like, if somebody is having issues with those, how do you help them? Like, is there like a mental technique or anything that you recommend for people to try in order to help them become more present in those moments and stop focusing on the wrong things and focusing on that connection?
What's the turn it off and turn it back on again of sex work?
Sexual healing. Like I said, you don't have to give the full answer.
No.
We can just put your link to the website below. But
no, I want to help as many people as I can. There's no shortage of clientele for me and other people in my position. It's a lot of mental training and reprogramming. So the mantra I will often give people is, how does this feel? If I'm up in my head, like, oh, does this look okay? No. How does this feel? How does this feel? And I might say that 1,000 times during a session with a partner because I'm trying to retrain myself to be in my body. And what that will often do for people who are having a really hard time being in their body, they'll say, how does this feel? How does this feel? How does this feel? Often they'll realize like, oh, it doesn't feel good. Oh, I don't want this to be happening. I want it to be like this. Oh, we need to stop. We need to change positions. I need more lube. I need whatever. They'll realize that what they're doing is negating their own needs and grinning and bearing it. and just trying to get through it and hoping that their partner is happy and not really concerned that they're grinning and bearing the session, and just like, I hope they did okay with it. I hope they're happy with how that went. And when they start to connect with their body and say, how does this feel? How does this feel? They realize that changes need to be made. But when you do that, when you say, how does this feel? And you pay attention, say, to your genitals while you're having sex, you will get more blood flow and more nerve reaction and more neural connectivity in your entire body. And that's connection we're looking for. We're not looking for disconnection. We're not looking for more ways to disassociate. Like, go on your computer but there's plenty of ways to disassociate in the world.
Right.
We're trying to practice connection.
Right.
So by being present, you make more neural connectivity, and then more of who you are can be in the session with your partner, and more of who they are can show up. And I promise there'll be better orgasms and more like space travel and super fun times that way.
Space
travel is super more fun time.
These are technical terms.
Yes, absolutely.
I love that though.
I love
if
that,
you don't know
though.
what I mean about space travel, then maybe you need to be working on
the
being present in your body when that's happening.
The connection and how to be present. Yeah.
You will go
trying
somewhere.
to go to Mars, man. Yeah.
Yeah. No shaming the type of sex you're having, and space travel is possible. That's what I'm saying.
That should be the name of the episode, honestly.
Space travel is possible.
Space travel with Melissa Hite. Yeah.
I think, wow. There's honestly a lot of stuff here for me to chew on. I think, I mean, in our conversation we had with you before we actually got to the recording bit of this, we did touch on a lot of things, and I had a lot of questions for you. The big thing that I wanted to talk about was that sexual awakening. But now, like, after having let that information digest, and now that we're here doing the recording, the stuff you're telling me now has to digest. And I guarantee you there's going to be a lot more stuff that I can think of and be like, oh, wait, but what about,
Well, I'll give you my website and my contact info.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's in our
down in our description and everything, because we want
my hope is that, because every time I've talked with you, right, I've learned something new. I've had to sit on some information, and it allowed me to want to think of something else to ask you, and twice now this has happened. And I'm hoping that our listeners, they will listen to what you have to say here, and that they will have the same thing. They will learn something, and then, because everybody's unique, they're going to have a situation or a moment or a feeling pop up in their head, and they're going to be like, oh, I wonder what her take is on this or that.
Or next time when they're zoning out, they'll say, how's this feel?
Yeah, how does this feel? Like, that's...
And then you notice how it feels. If I wasn't clear on that, then you pay attention to the sensation.
And then you focus on the solution.
Yeah, or maybe there's no problem. You just pay attention to sensation. Maybe
and then just enjoy the solution that you're having.
Yeah. Maybe the solution is, oh wow, that feels good. I actually like that. Can I be okay with feeling that good?
Huh. Is that why it's called a climax? Interesting.
Often we struggle to feel that good.
Yeah. Huh.
That's why I said, going back to what you said about you have questions and you're going to have to kind of marinate this. That's why when I say, what do? I tell people that I help give people a different perspective on sexuality.
Yeah.
Because this is always the outcome when I talk to people about this stuff is like, whoa, I never thought about it that way. And that's what I want. I want us to expand who we are as beings into a more beautiful, dynamic, heart-centered, pleasure-filled life. I want to live with people in my world that are doing the same things.
Yeah. So one thing that I will pull from our brainstorm session that I think is kind of the header for me here is it's getting back to yourself. It's not something outside that they have to cultivate or do, or, if they subscribe to you for 3 months, then they'll know. the secrets. You're just bringing people back into their body and their own awareness and letting them be comfortable in their skin and love themselves.
I would change just a little bit, not bringing people, but guiding people, because you have to choose to be in your body and to be aware. And a lot of people aren't ready and don't feel safe to do that, and all sorts of things. So there's no kind of forcing this energetic self into the body. But I help people navigate coming back to themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. One of just the quote that really stuck out and like has been echoing since we spoke, last Friday, was get back to yourself. You help people get back to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And what a beautiful gift.
Because I and your family and friends and community want to connect with you. Want to connect with who you are and more of the totality of you, not the you that is outside of yourself, people pleasing and yada yada. I want to see you.
You have to be your genuine self. Your genuine self.
I want to ask you to take some breaths and feel into your body now. How do you feel now? Because a lot of information just happened. A lot of things just happened. Of course, asking all the listeners to do the same thing, to check into their body and how do you feel right now?
I don't want to interrupt anyone, so please continue thinking. But my primary sensation is like a giddiness, because I'm excited to move forward and learn and evolve with this.
Just want to help people get grounded a bit and not spun out and sent off into your day after listening to this podcast, like spinning out. Get connected back in with your body before we sign off.
How are you feeling, Tim?
Interestingly enough, I kind of feel a little disappointed in myself. I think almost like a shame for not thinking about sex in this manner, as a way of connection, or, thinking about how does this feel? It's almost like Aaron, the giddiness you're feeling, the excitedness that you have, I'm almost like, I guess, shameful that I've never had thought about it in this manner before. So I don't know. It's interesting. I feel like there's definitely some work that I probably should be looking into and doing right now.
I don't want to leave you feeling any kind of sexual shame. That's for sure the opposite of what I'm trying to do. So try to dive deeper into that and have compassion for what you've grown up in, how you've grown up, what you've been told, what you've been taught, that have kept you from exploring more, that has told you that like you've met certain standards, so you're good to go and you don't need to do any more work. There's all sorts of things that have created you to not explore deeper here that are outside of your control. And so now you're at the point of going, maybe I want to explore more here. And you can kind of you can let the shame go if you can. You can let that go by the wayside. Like, it doesn't matter that you haven't until now. Maybe now you're inspired to go, oh, there's more for me to learn.
Yeah.
I want to learn more.
Yeah.
I want to be a better lover. I want to be a more powerful, sexy me in the world.
Yeah. I want to get this connection. That's what I really want. I really want that. I'm very excited in a way. Still, I'm surprised at myself, but yes. I mean, we're always constantly growing, and I understand that. But I am going to reflect a bit more and give myself the compassion needed to understand and kind of explore more.
So
Cool.
But thank you.
Add some compassion into that. Yeah. Add some compassion into it. And curiosity.
That's the big word.
Yeah. Well,
We have the opportunity to fix our finances now, Tim. We should not feel shame that we did not do it sooner.
We're 30 years of age. We have this chance. Yeah. The lack of knowledge for the past 10 years of my life.
Yeah.
Hey,
And it's an endless
this is going to be
path.
our decade. An endless path.
Yeah, you're not going to reach an end to it. You can continue to explore this world.
Kind of like.
And you get the opportunity to either bring your own light or be your own light. I think it's be your own light.
It's definitely bring your own light.
Because if I bring it, what if I didn't bring my batteries? If I am my own light,
Yeah.
I don't need batteries.
But what if you
There's
didn't charge yourself
food.
properly the night before?
Well, I can tell you I didn't do that, so I'm giddy and I'm tired. But Melissa and I talked a bit earlier about how tired I was.
You are the beautiful, glowing man, you know, but not everybody's as glowing as you. I hope you know that.
I do.
And that's why they
I
need to
do.
bring their own light.
Fair.
Well, Melissa.
And luckily there are plenty of luminous people such as Melissa.
Mentally, she is brighter than the both of us combined, Aaron.
I'm just geeked out on this one subject.
And that makes you the expert of this one subject. And I've definitely learned some stuff from you. So yes, and you are a genius.
And I'm
Aw,
very happy
thank
that I
you.
got to learn from you.
My last thing, right, before we finish this episode off and everything, I understand that this topic people can misconstrue what you do. They can hear what you're talking about, and all they can focus on is the sex portion of this entire conversation. And all they're thinking to themselves is, oh, she just wants to talk about sex, whatever. Or that's gross, or anything along those lines, right? I want to give you the opportunity before we finish this episode. Are there moments that you feel like you want to clarify or, I guess, expand on a little bit? So this way people completely understand. There's no room for error here. You know, this is a topic that there is plenty of people who are going to misunderstand one way or the other. And I just want to make sure you have the opportunity to delve a little bit further.
Cool. I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm going to take it a different way. People
Okay.
will definitely misunderstand. People will definitely misconstrue what I say. I find universally that people perceive me based on their perceptions of sexuality and their ideas of sexuality.
Okay.
If I say
Okay.
I'm a sex educator, everyone is going to come to me with what they think sexuality is, with what their paradigms and their constructs of what sexuality is. So I have always been misunderstood and misconstrued and judged and demonized for having these kind of conversations. Always, always, always. And that's been a part of the work, is dealing with that. What people don't realize is they're exposing themselves. They're exposing their biases. They're exposing their lack of knowledge and information. People have no idea when they say that I'm bad and wrong and dirty, that they're showing me that they think sex is bad and wrong and dirty. And then that's what they believe. People have no idea that I'm a mirror for them. So I don't think I have anything I need to clarify. My request is that if you have judgments, is to look at yourself, to look at who you are and to look at yourself. We can have conversations about it if you want, and it's going to be more powerful for you to just look at yourself. I am not worried about what you think about me. I've had to be okay with that in order to be in this position. You know, we all are worried to some degree. We all have the sense of belonging that we need, but I am very used to being demonized for just doing normal, natural human things.
Yeah.
Breathtaking response.
I know that we have communicated not nearly as much as like probably you and Aaron, I'm sure, but in the times that we have talked, my word that I would use to describe you is phenomenal. You're an outstanding individual, and I absolutely love the way you look at things, and you know, just you're incredible. So if anybody wants to demonize you, they can come and talk to me and Aaron first.
Yeah.
Bodyguards as I can get in this lifetime. That sounds great.
She's part of the family.
Yeah, part of the fam. Look out for any bald guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also do want to say, I know we're going to talk about like links and my social media and this kind of thing. I do want a disclaimer that my social media is unimpressive, I think, at best. For my own mental health, I stay off of social media as much as I can. It doesn't really feed my work. It doesn't really give me more clients, but sometimes I post things here and there.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a really impressive social media platform, it's not mine, but I'm still here. I'm still doing the work. I still am taking, my focus is on my clients.
Yeah.
My focus is on my work. It's not on presenting myself in a particular way to the world. Yeah. So you can follow my social media, and I think Aaron talked it up a little too much. It's pretty rare that I post anything. No, it's okay.
Yeah, it's like,
Maybe look for a sexual educator in your neck of the woods. Melissa's busy.
No,
She'll
I'll take more clients.
But Melissa isn't the only sexual educator out there.
No, there's a lot. Yeah,
So
find
someone out
I
anyone.
feel the way that Melissa has in this episode, because I'm sure everyone out there has felt loved and accepted and has a lot to chew on.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of sexual educators out there. I am here to help. I am taking more clients now. If you're interested in the boundary course, that's a pretty intensive, like, you've reached the point where you can't lose yourself anymore. I have to figure out how to have good boundaries because I can't be walked on. I can't, whatever. It's a 6-month deep dive.
Wow.
So it's a big one. It's not for like, maybe you want to dabble in this. Maybe you want to learn a little more about it. It's for like, okay, I need to figure this out.
Yeah.
So that's the boundary work I have, and more online curriculum coming someday. You know, I've always been great one-on-one, like in person with people, workshops, and changing to the technological world has been quite the learning curve for me.
Us too.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And this, so any of the courses that you have available, you post about them on your website, right?
You'll want to go into my email list, which I will not spam you or sell your information or anything, but you'll want to get on my email list to hear about the workshops or online courses. Yeah. And they'll be on my website right now. Under the courses page, there's just one, the boundary course, but there'll be more eventually.
Well, listeners, you heard it. Okay. Go to the courses on her website. So this way, you know what she's got available, and get on her email list.
Yeah.
And get ready for 6 months of being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Man, thank you all for joining us. This has been Aaron.
And Tim.
And Melissa. Melissa Hite.
So tag someone who astounds you with their bodily awareness.
And comment on our recent post with what you want to hear us discuss on a future episode.
Be good to yourselves and each other. We love you.